The Dr. Oba Tashaka Show. Free your mind, and the rest will follow. A show for all who are on the journey to discover the truths about their identity, history, culture, politics, spirituality, and family relationships. This is a show for the Black Freedom Movement and the Black Power generation and the hip-hop generation, including Black Lives Matter and associate activists, all of whom are seeking change. Dr. Oba Tashaka and his guests are dropping knowledge and insight from his successful organizing, research, writings, and innovative thoughts, the best of which have piped into God's mind to lift you up higher and higher. To the bosses, OGs, rappers, influencers, and those looking to evolve from the constraints of misinformation and miseducation to build a foundation for personal growth, love, and mental freedom. Check out the wisdom of the OR. Yeah, that's the original revolutionary, Oba T, who inspired 1 million black men with his rousing speech at the Million Man March, and who continues to fight, write, and speak the truth. Dr. Oba Tashaka is one of the deepest deep thinkers in the world today. A quote by Dr. Asa Hilliard. Dr. Oba Tashaka, then Bill Bradley, was the best leader organizer in the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. An endorsement from Dr. George Wiley, Associate Director of National CORE and the best organizer blacks produced in the 1970s as the organizer of the National Welfare Rights Organization. The Dr. Oba Tashaka Show. Free your mind, and the rest will follow.
Trouble getting in. Greetings. How's everybody doing? Another Dr. Oba Tashaka show. It's 136. You know, some hard work being done here. I want to say greetings to Wolf Manlu, Kurt Thomas, Gloria Briscoe, Brother Ugawa, Charlene Graham, Yvonne Bradley, BB Gina, Sister Robin. I sent you a message. Let me know if the answer is where it should be. Yvette Anderson. Let's see, who else here? Ancient African Mindset, that was the first one to be on the chat. And let's see if that's it. So greetings to all of you and to others that come on. I want to remind people that subscribe if you're new to the show. Subscribe. Go to Cash App, because I pay for this show myself. Ain't no corporate sponsors. You understand? And so I put a lot of money into this show. You got to start putting something up, because I ain't going broke for you. I love you, but I don't love you that much. And for those that can't use Cash App, I'll put up a thing how you can send stuff to me directly. You can also purchase my books at Gumroad, not Amazon. Don't be telling me you went to Amazon, please. And you see some people here I'm going to introduce in a minute. They're conscious about what that means. You're supporting someone that ain't looking out for you. And also hit the like button. I want to note that since I did 3 shows on the counterintelligence program, the people who control the algorithms have slowed them down. So it actually cut into my viewership. I mean, I'm not here to please, the people who set this up. And since it was firsthand experience of how we defeated the counterintelligence program with the help of Brother Ustadi, by the way, I know they didn't like that. They don't have some dead hero they can look at. Because I believe I'm going to die when it's my time, and I'm going to do like my mother and get more time. You know what I mean? So I want you to know that. So encourage your friends who are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to plug in and support the show. I want to remind people last week's show was on Africa, the birthplace of democracy. That covered new stuff that hasn't been covered before. And it's useful in how we strengthen our communities today and strengthen the nations we're living in. So let's get into today's show. This is part 2 of the show we did 2 weeks ago. We couldn't do a part 2 the previous week because Ustadi's great aunt had died. And I think she was in her 90s. We went down to Texas to be at her memorial. And that's far more important than any show. So that's why we didn't do them back to back. So this is part 2 on independent Black schools with a focus on the African Children's Advanced Learning Center. And one of the people on this show that we'll be introducing in a minute may have gone to the Pan-African Center for Progressive Education. But that is the predecessor to African Children's Advanced Learning Center. So when Brother Ustadi and Brother Robert Woods get on, they'll be a part of this conversation. So today, the topic is on independent Black schools, and it's entitled The Kemetic Art of Teaching, which means Seba, that opens the door to the student's inner life. So let me repeat that. The Kemetic Art of Teaching, which is Seba, that opens the door to the student's inner life. So this show is going to be a deeper dive into themes that we covered 2 weeks ago in general. And that's why I wanted some former students of ACAL play a key part in this discussion so they could discuss how each of these things that we talk about, the approaches to education and stuff, affected them when they were going through the school. And you'll see, for the most part, these are mature men and a mature but younger young lady. And that's what we wanted. We wanted the age spectrum, you know. That was Ustadi's idea. In addition to being a teacher, he's an organizer. And they all picked you out because our guests that I'm going to introduce in a minute, because of their specific qualities and stuff. So that's Ustadi for you. So we're going to get into a deeper dive in essence of how do we get the best out of our youth so that they can be the best Africans and best human beings in life, which is what I know their parents have tried to do as well. So we're not suggesting we're the only ones who are trying to do this. And in fact, we've learned, because your mother's your first teacher and is often the best teacher. And that's really what the African method of education is based on, the mother. You get good as a mother in teaching, then you're bad. I'm saying it that way to make sure it's not misinterpreted. So I first want to introduce our distinguished guests. First of all, ladies first, Jonah Gordon. How are you?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah, glad to have you. Big honor.
Thank you.
Brother Mensa Ajanaku.
Peace. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
Glad to have you on, brother. And Stephen, unmute.
Greetings.
Stephen Boner. Glad to have
Great
you
to
on.
be here. Good to be here.
Right on. Stephen is out at a sports event that his son is taking part in, soccer. You know, good father,
Yes.
and so he could actually take time to blend in what we're going to cover with this show while backing his son up. You know what I mean? And that's real nice. As soon as we get Robert Woods and Ustadi in, I'll reintroduce them. So today, what we want to do is deal with one of the most precious things that we can do in life is to see that our children, these are all adults now, get the kind of knowledge, wisdom, and parents impart both values that will make them strong in the world. So independent Black education is not an easy thing in that we purposely are not going for financing from the system. If we did, it would be a different kind of education. And so the education that Mensa, Kajona, and Stephen received was financed by their parents. You know, that was basically what kept us going. And that guaranteed that there was no outside influences coming into the education that will miseducate you, tell you some lies so that you can just conform to the state curriculum. Yet you'll beat anything that the state is doing. And if you don't think so, after you hear from these three brilliant people, you'll know so. You hear me? So what I'd like each one of you to do is just give people a little background on yourself, who you are, your family, some things about yourself, starting with Kajona.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kijana Gordon. I went to ACAL from the end of my third grade year all the way up until my sophomore year of high school. I came from a former student of the school as well. She just couldn't be here today because she had to help my siblings with one of their sports events as well. And
your mother was a former student of the school?
Yes, my mother was a former student in the school. She came, I forgot what year she was there, but she was when the school was more of a reform school. That's when she came in. And then I've heard about the school forever in my life. And after third grade, she was like, they don't accept students until fourth grade. So you're going to go to another African school and we're immediately shipping you to ACAL afterwards. And I was just like, okay, cool. So I never really, I started off on the right foot going to the school. I never went to public school first. So it's nice.
Right on. I understand from Ustadi that your mother had some experiences when she went through the school that altered her approach to what she pushed on you when you went through the school. What was that?
We were two different beings. So she was a teenager when she had me. She had me at 16, and she just completely took the mindset that Babu Ustadi, Babu Woods, and ACAL gave to her and enforced it in my life. And I thought it was normal because, that's how I grew up and that's how my family decided to raise their children. But she was totally different than how I was. I liked education, liked math, because you guys taught her that education was important and knowledge was the most powerful weapon. So she instilled that on me, and I've been good ever since.
Right on. So you came in with a thirst for knowledge.
Yes.
Already.
Yeah, I was a self-claimed nerd, and I loved it, and I still am.
Right on. That's very good. Brother Mensa, unmute. Tell us about yourself, your family.
Awesome. Okay, peace. Once again, my name is Mensa Ajanaku. I went to ACALC in 92, 93. I was there for my freshman and part of my sophomore year. Very unique experience. My godfather is Babu Ustadi Kadiri. I have roots that go back as far as Fulton Street, with even before ACALC. and with Mama Jasiri. So I have roots real deep into ACALC and in Papo and you know, all of those organizations moving forward. And so because of ACALC, I was able to go to an HBCU, Tennessee State University, although I did not finish there. I was an Africana Studies major there. I finished at Cal State, what's now called Cal State East Bay, Cal State Hayward. I got my BA in Ethnic Studies, primary in Africana Studies, secondary in Native American or Indigenous Studies. And then in 2019, I got my MBA, Master's of Business Administration, from WGU, which I thought was critical, trying to work a plan. And also because of ACAL, it's like ingrained in me, you know. I'm an African internationalist. I think that there's nothing better than that. I sent my sons, both of my sons went to Ile-Omade for several years. And that was all of the influence of ACALC. And I still utilize a lot of the principles and a lot of the systems and processes that I got from ACALC. And so that's a little bit about me and my family. And I have to definitely honor my mother in that, you know, it was a struggle. The road was a struggle with me. But my mother, Babu Ustadi, Brother Woods, Ndugu Shipaza, Baba Obatashaka, and others really pushed it forward with me, Baba Tembuzi. So, you know, for me, it's always, I just came up this way. You know, the struggle is real, but it's worth it. So that's what I have.
I think one of the things I got out of this one is, along with everything else you got out of the education, is being African is central. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. That is key. That is most essential. That is all above everything else for me.
What about you, Kajona?
Yeah, I completely agree. Being in ACAL taught something that you don't get in public schools, and that was a sense of self and a sense of Black worth. And even though your family can teach that to you, even though the school also became my family as well, going to school and learning that you are worth it, you weren't just a slave, like, it was amazing, and it built a very strong foundation of self-confidence and self-respect, self-esteem. I loved it.
Right on. That's real key, because that's not an easy message to get across to the average student coming into a classroom, given the messages they're getting everywhere else. In your cases, you were getting it in the home. You were getting a good message, but in a lot of cases, you may not even be getting it in the home. You know what I mean? But definitely, you're not getting it anywhere else. Not on television, not in the, not in the community, nowhere else. So maybe a few places, but not many. So that's probably the most significant thing that's going to come out of this discussion, is that being African took. And you got a smile on your face with it, you know? Stephen, tell people about your background. Unmute.
Definitely. My mom was very concerned about my education in Oakland educational system, and she worked really hard to make sure that I had the proper tools to be able to succeed in life. So she was an active member in WOSAID, which was where ACALC was at one time. And when she found out about the school, she immediately enrolled me, and I have no regrets, honestly. It has opened my eyes to everything. I don't think that I would have gotten the same education in the Oakland public school system. And my mom worked really hard. Like you said, mother's the beginning of the education, right? I worked really hard to make sure that that was the case. I graduated in 95. I was there for pretty much my whole high school year. Afterwards, I went to Auburn University, got my Chemie from Auburn, and It's been great since.
What'd you major in at Auburn?
Chemical engineering.
Right on. Chemical engineering. And get off that. Unmute.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, right on. So you also had an interest in the areas of science and math and stuff like that.
Yes, definitely. That was actually it was my visit to an HBCU where I came in contact with one of the most influential teachers. I don't remember his name, but he was a biochem engineer, and he just opened my eyes and made it exactly clear where I wanted to head. So,
Right on. And that's a black college you went to?
no. Auburn is not a black. Auburn University is in Alabama.
Okay, right on. Yeah, very good. Wow. Got some heavyweights I'm dealing with here. I don't know if I'm heavy enough to handle this discussion. I'll try. I'll do my best. We're still waiting for Ustadi and Brother Robert Woods, but we haven't missed the main points that they're going to come in on. What I want to do is provide a background for viewers and refresh each of your memories on the state of the Black community when you come into ACAL and you, Mensa, the African Children's Advanced Learning Center that became ACAL. And the reason I'm doing this is that for the longest period of time, there was an orderly transmission of African American culture from our elders to our youth, and our families were basically stable, whether we were coming out of the South, which is where most of us were, or in the North, where we moved, a lot of us during World War II, and then some after. And so on the one hand, there was a orderly transmission in the South of our culture under segregation. But there were also Black schools and Black communities and Black institutions that reinforced the education we were receiving. But since 1968, and the reason I'm dealing with this is because when conditions change in the Black community, then it changes how we impact education in the classroom. It changes the challenges that teachers face, but it particularly changes what you as students, young people growing up, were facing in your own community. So since 1968, powerful hostile forces hit the Black community, the likes of which had never hit it before. And those forces took the form of globalization. And most of our people didn't even know what those forces were, where they took manufacturing jobs out of the country. And so you had two-parent households for 100 years. 75% of our families had a mother and father in it. And then from 68 to now, Black families underwent more erosion than between 1619 and 1968. So 75% two-parent households from our presence here, particularly 1865 to 1968, over 100 years, where even though we were sharecropping or doing, work that barely paid, our families largely stayed together. And then we had extended family communities where elders could raise you, meaning they could discipline you. They looked out for you, Those were carryovers from Africa. But with globalization, when those manufacturing jobs hit, it hits Black people the hardest because we were 20% in manufacturing, but only 10 to 12% of the population. So it really hit our families because it meant we weren't making the man could no longer make the money that would enable him to take care of family on his own or primarily. And it put the family in a difficult position. So there's a direct correlation between the erosion of good paying jobs in the Black community, for Black people coming from the society at large, and the erosion of the family. Between 1976 and 1982, 700,000 Black men lost their jobs and 700,000 Black men left the family. No finance, no romance. So that's the biggest hit. And that's an invisible hit because the people couldn't see it. And that's a hit now affecting white people because their two-parent households have been 75% since their being here, and now it's 50%. Why? Those same jobs have left them. And that's also why Trump got in office, in part. It wasn't just opposing the Mexicans and racism, it was also fake populism, where he was telling them he's going to restore what was lost by deindustrialization. And all he did was talk and give tax cut for the rich, you know, and then allow a lot of people to die under COVID. So these forces hit our community. And then it was the forces of redevelopment where they called it urban renewal, where Black communities were busted up. That was deliberate because there had been a movement, a Black freedom movement that I was a part of and many others that had defeated white racism in the South and restored the right to vote and end segregation, at least legally. Those were victories of the Southern movement. And then there were victories in the Northern movement. And so the payback was to hit the Black community hard so that the next generation would not be able to be the troops that would be a part of a Black freedom movement. So what did they do by the mid-'80s? The CIA has admitted it, put drugs in the Black community. That was deliberate. Guns, supporting gangs, and they assassinated major leaders, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, a good part of the Black Panther Party. I faced 3 of those. They tried to kill me 3 times and tried to take my jobs twice. Some of us beat this. We didn't all go down, but those that went down, they got a heavy hit. And that was designed to, deprive the Black community of its eyes and ears, its best leadership. And so all of these forces combined produced what the Spirit told me, and Ustadi has confirmed this in his own writings, in his own organizing. It caused in the Black community a choice between 2 cultures, where many of our youth were put in the position of having to choose between their rich African American culture and a mad European American culture. And so individualism, whereas among Blacks, the individuals always had to be strong, but the group comes before the individual. But with these powerful forces that hit our community, the younger generation generally places the individual before the group, generally. And that's not their fault. That's the forces that hit Black communities. It used to be that there was a strong respect for elders in our community. Still is, but it is not nearly as strong, And that's, again, an alien culture hitting our community. And it used to be the community protected the children. But when they start sticking guns in the community, drugs in the community, fear is driven between the young and the old. And we have the emergence of the generation gap, where a lot of young people will listen to a younger person before they'll listen to any elder. This isn't true for everybody, but it's true for too many. Our communities have become shooting galleries because CIA, FBI, in putting guns and drugs in the Black community, what they want to do was shift the youth away from, and this isn't most of our youth, it's a small number, but shift them into illegal activity rather than freedom movement activity. So this was deliberate. And so, but the unintended consequences was a choice between 2 cultures because the power structure wasn't smart enough to figure out that we had a culture that they had to snuff out. They wanted to snuff out activism, you know. They wanted to snuff out unity between the young and the old. One of the reasons we formed African Children's Advanced Learning Center was to see that we could reach the younger generation and they could do whatever they wanted to do to participate in the forward struggle for Black liberation. So these were some of the conditions. And then, you know, we have the rise of prison industrial complex, a whole lot of Black youth, especially Black males, thrown into prison when they no longer have any jobs, when they break up Black communities and break up Black businesses, and then the business in the community is illegal. And so they're going to throw them in jail for that. When in fact, Blacks use drugs at the same percentage rate as whites, but we're the overwhelming majority in prison. So these are some of the forces that hit our community and put us in this position. So I'd like to ask each one of you, given the time period that you were affected by, and I think Mensa, you're the oldest one, so I'm going to start with you on this one, and then Stephen, and then Kajona. What were the conditions like in the Black community at the time in which you began to undergo your education and was growing up? What effect were those conditions having on you, your family, your friends, and your sense of education?
Yes. So I grew up in the Bay Area, in San Francisco and Oakland, you know, lovingly known as Frisco in the town, in the 80s and the 90s. And so for me, there was a lot of love in the community, but there was also a lot of disenfranchisement, right? A lot of people that were impoverished or without, had lack of resources, lack of what they needed to succeed and excel. Luckily enough, but not really luckily, my mother was always of the mindset that education was key. So for us, that was always a fundamental aspect of things, right? Like, we're going to get our education regardless of what else you do. And so that was something that was always pushed. And no matter what else was happening, I made sure that I did that. I always exceeded and did pretty well education wise. But then because of what was going on in my environment, you know, I started to go a different way. You know, I was about 12, 13, 14 when I really started doing some things that were pretty critical. And I think if not probably for Baba Ustadi Kadiri, and, you know, being able to shift to Oakland and having him as my godfather and pick up some pieces, that I would not be here today, because I was making some very, some decisions that weren't good. So I grew up around there. Of course, we understand, because with disenfranchisement, a lot of things are going on around, right? So I grew up also in West Oakland, where, you know, it's not the West Oakland of today. There was money that was there, but it wasn't funneled into the right pockets. And because of that, you had communities that were kind of broken down. And although, once again, the love was there, the resources wasn't there. And, you know, lack of resources doesn't mean that people aren't going to get it, because they're going to get it. And so with getting that and hustling and doing whatever's necessary to get those resources, sometimes you have criminality and you have violence. And so there was not a lack of that in the community that I grew up in. You almost become satiated to it, but it's not normal. It shouldn't be normalized, and it shouldn't be accepted. So you know, I grew up around that, but I also grew up around a lot of love. I grew up around a lot of reinforcement. I had brothers and sisters, babas and mamas that were there to really save my life. And so I'm very fortunate for that. But like I said, if not for them, I wouldn't be talking to you today. And so West Oakland was very ridden with drugs and other things, but it was also You know, I'm not going to act like you couldn't go outside and be with your people. You just knew that at certain times in certain places you didn't want to be unless you were really with that. So, you know, but as far as education wise, that was always my focus. Regardless of whatever else I was doing, I was never not about I was always getting the schoolwork done. I was always driven and motivated that way. It was just for me, I was with other things that could have taken me away from that. So that's really my perspective on it.
That's an interesting perspective because you're describing a period in the community where, while it's under attack, drugs and stuff are going on. At the same time, the network, the structure of the Black community is still strong and strong enough to help counter some of these influences on the streets, the extended family community, your own family, and other people that could give you direction. And so that's characteristic of the period from the mid 80s to the early 90s, where the community is just starting to come under this heavy attack, and the support systems that are much more lacking now were there. And I talk to guys who come up later, and what they describe is, whereas you had some support there, they can describe a situation where there's virtually none for them. And if they don't have it with their parent, and it's usually only one, then they haven't got it at all, which means they're not being raised, you know?
And I wanted to piggyback. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying, which is true. We all know, and they have all said it, that the FBI intentionally put these things in the community, meaning drugs, meaning guns, ways to continue to break up the community as we know it. When you talk about the Iran-Contra scandal and the dirty wars that were going on in Nicaragua and Oliver North, they intentionally fueled and funded the drug war within our communities to ensure that they took fathers out of the homes, that 90-something% would take plea bargains so that they would remain in the prison pipeline complex. All of these things were done intentionally to oppress us, to continue to disenfranchise us, so that we couldn't grow, so that we couldn't keep our eyes on the prize, and we couldn't do what was necessary for ourselves and our children in our community. So I definitely am aligned with you on that.
Yeah, and to be specific, while the FBI was involved, it was a CIA operation, and that's even worse. And the CIA is not supposed to be involved in the internal affairs of the U.S., but it always has been. And so that means that an agency that's supposed to be dealing overseas is dealing domestically, because
Exactly.
the freedom movement coming from Black people, the Black Power movement, the Black Panther movement, the Pan-Africanist movement, the Afrocentric movements, as a domestic threat. And they admitted it. Maxine Waters got them to admit it, And then we go along and just point the finger at the kids who are doing the shooting, and we have to stop that. But that's a difficult thing to stop because it's violence. You know what I mean? But the cause is hardly ever discussed. So yeah, very good. Yeah, that's Stephen. What did you see growing up, and what time period was that, and how were the conditions in the Black community affecting you when it comes to your education, your life in general?
So I came up during the same time as Mensa in the 80s and 90s in Bay Area, primarily Oakland. And describing it from my perspective then, it was like a graveyard for Black hope, Black businesses, families torn apart, children who had no direction, no support, right? It was difficult because to have so many people around that had no hope, of no direction, and no family structure to be able to really support them. Um, People are going to survive no matter what, right? You can't take everything away from somebody and expect them to lie down and die. They are going to do what they can to survive, and that's basically the environment I felt like I was growing up in. Is that people are just trying to survive? You know what I mean? Just trying to make it day to day, without the support that that was necessary. The kids I grew up around, family structures were decimated by drugs and by missing parental figures. You know, and we tend to blame the individual and not see the background that they're coming from. These people are trying to make it in a place where there is no support. Right, the young boys are need some type of direction and some type of positive um, feeding of their ego to understand that they are great people, and to what they can do, as well as the young girls. Right, when you take that support structure away, uh, you have people who strive for understanding of who they are, and willing to go out there and take the pride and respect that wasn't given to them rightfully when they were younger. Right, so yeah, I grew up in a place of quite a few drugs and uh, kids who were doing what they could to survive. Uh, and There were a few beacons of hope. I mean, we had quite a few leaders in the community who were there to help us out. Quite a few businesses and places like ACALC, what was it, community church, places that were working to try to get those families out of the weeds and on their feet. But at the time, as a kid, all I saw was difficulty. I saw no direction, and I think that was one of the biggest problems during my time too. Is the fact that I didn't see anything after today. I didn't know that there was any hope of moving on to anything beyond what I saw out my front door. And I think it was places that like like ACAL and the teachers that were there that gave me that vision and that direction to want to achieve something more than what I saw outside my front door.
That's a real inside view of what you saw going on. What I appreciate about what both of you said is that both of you are also stressing that in the worst of times, Mensa saw more going on where there was support. There was also something else going on. But Stephen, you're describing a period where there was very little to see in terms of the hope that a person could have. And what years was that, to be specific with you, Stephen? Get off the, yeah.
Definitely in the 80s and 90s. So I graduated in 95.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So more erosion is going on at that point. And so it's graphic to say you could step outside your door and not see any future, literally, or the future you saw wasn't going to last very long. There's a saying in the hood, a lot of young people have this saying, I'm not afraid to die, I'm afraid to live. Mm-hmm. And so ingrained in a lot of young Black youth is the idea that life is more dangerous than death or dying. It's a sad state. And we're seeing it now, high suicide rates. Blacks have always had the lowest, ours is still the lowest, but 7 to 11-year-olds, Black kids have a higher suicide rate than whites. Ain't no kid that age supposed to be considering taking their life. That's a system that's doing that. So I think you're giving a good picture of the background. of what Ustadi and Baba Woods and others have had to contend with, but what you were dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Now, Kajana, tell us what it was like for you growing up and what the time period was.
So I was born in 2002. So this was like early 2000s through now. Um, Personally, since I grew up with ACAB, basically, I didn't have to experience the bad environment that you guys have grown up with. It was definitely still there, but since I started at such a young age, I never really got a chance to go out and be a part of that environment. My mother was just like Mensa's mother. Education was always the most important, and that was instilled in me since birth. So there was never a time when I was like, that's not important. Um, so I got blessed with starting out very young, going to ACAL. Even so, like even now, it's kind of still my era of growing up. I know that it exists. It's definitely not as bad as it was in the 80s, but it is still a very prevalent problem that we have to deal with.
So you benefited from an African cocoon.
Yeah. From the start, out the womb, it was like African. And I was like, all right, that's all I know. So it was definitely the best way to grow up.
Showing that family can do a lot to block stuff out when it's a conscious family. You know? And they give you the love and the direction. So,
and I'd like to say this, Ababa. What's interesting is, from my perspective, it saved my life, and from her perspective, she really grew up in it, and didn't have to experience it that way. But we both got it, just in different ways. So I just wanted to recognize that and salute you on that, for sure.
Right on. So now we have Babu Ustadi and Baba Woods on. And first of all, why don't you all share a few memories you had when these three students, former students of yours, stepped through the door? What were some of the memories that you had about them? I know they want to hear this. Ustadi, can you hear me? Talk louder.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it could be louder.
Okay. No problem. Hold on. Okay, I'll start with mental. The bones. And you know, I guess before I even talk about the children, is that I knew Mensa's mother, I knew Stephen's mother, and I taught Tijana's mother, and she wasn't easy. That's why Tijana is like she is, because her mama was 100% different than her. 100% role. You know, I'm just saying, no, I'm just telling you the truth. I had her. So, yeah, Stephen, Jesus Christ. I'm home.
Your voice is breaking up, so try and move closer to Robert Woods. And I think it seems when you're on that side, the voice is clear.
Okay, we're trying to work it out.
That's good.
Can you hear me good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Stay right where you are and talk. Go ahead.
Brother Woods. So anyway, Stephen.
Yeah.
Stephen. Yes. Remember, we was at Wolfay. What year was that? You remember?
So I'm asking you, what was your impression of each of these young people when they came into the school?
Yes, to me, Steve. I'm trying to remember Steve. Steve was kind of quiet, if I remember correctly. He wasn't no troublemaker. You remember the troublemaker?
No.
Steve wasn't no troublemaker. Steve was always easy.
Your voice.
Steve had a problem with doing his homework. If I'm correct, am I right, Baba? Am I right, Steve?
That is correct. Yes.
But he's very disciplined. You know, that's one thing I gotta say.
Your voice is low and then high.
Okay, well,
There it is. Keep your head up.
Okay, so the thing about Steve, I remember one time Steven got his bike stolen on the way to school.
Oh, I remember this story. Yes, I remember that story. That's right.
So Steve, I was just listening to what Steve was talking about.
Yeah. It's firsthand accounts, right? Yeah, I had to walk in. I got jumped by like three guys on a bicycle
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
school,
yeah.
trying to get my butt to school as fast as possible. Then as soon as I get to school, when I was studying, Robert Woods hear about that. They hop into the car. We go out looking for him. Get my bike back. I remember that. That is burned into my memory, definitely. Again, this is what I'm talking about, like the positive beacons of hope that actually were there for me during that time. And I'm not saying my mom kept me out of that loop. This is the reason why I didn't join any gangs. I made it the way I did is because my mom was the beginning, right? But it was the support of people like Babu Study and brother Robert Woods that actually, solidified that and helped me to get to where I needed to go.
Yeah.
Your memory of other students that are
Okay,
here.
Mr. I know Mr. How. She's 10. How old are you? Yeah. Do you remember Mr.? How are you? Because we did the rites of passage thing. How are you?
Yeah.
10? How are you?
12.
12? Somewhere in there.
Yeah, like 11, 12. Yeah.
Yeah, Mensa thought he was Superman. He ain't got to listen to nobody, including his mama. So with me and him got a real good relationship. But he was always sharp. You just have to pull it out of it. And oh yeah. Well, since we was doing the rites of passage program, Mensa, how old was you? 12 when I got you? 13?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we was doing a rites of passage program, which we're about to start up again, dealing with boys from 10 to 15. But anyway, Mensa, I guess he was smelling himself and talking crazy to his mama. So I had to go get him, and he stayed with me for a whole year. So I got to know Mensa real well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to get into another part of the discussion.
Well, academically, he wasn't bad. He's just lazy. That's all of them. They got that disease, Brother Wood calls.
Calls what?
We got Brother Woods got a French tongue. He called people who are lazy. He used what's the French tongue, Brother Woods?
Robert Woods, I can't hear you.
Okay. You got to get.
Can't hear you at all.
Where's the mic? I don't know. Hey, where's the mic?
Are you in front of the computer? I can see you, but yeah, move a little bit closer if you can to a study.
Oh, maybe.
Okay,
can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay. Now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That better?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
How's that?
Yeah, that's fine. So what do you remember about these young people, these formerly young people? And one still young person.
We've already met to see. Was very quiet. What's to do?
Can't hear you.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there.
Right here. You can hear me.
Yeah.
All right. Steve was a quiet student, subdued, but very, very, very smart in getting his work done when we got on his case. After he got on his case, but after a year, so he was on it and had no problem. And at the same time, I was still developing my teaching skills. So I learned a lot from the students. I still learn a lot from students. I learned to teach students from the students. So at Mensa was strong, headed. Like I said, he had take over for a while. And after he took and started working with him, things came out very smooth and very clear. Kijana I've been knowing since she was 7. Were you in the 3rd grade when you came? She came to the school in third grade. But then I had developed a lot of other programs, and so I had a problem with Kijana. You know, matter of fact, she was always leading and doing things I could get her to teach other students. So
Your voice is a little low. Keep your move
okay,
to
right
the
here.
right a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear the last part of Kijana? Kijana was that she was third grade. And what age is that? 8 or 7? Did I say?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, something like that. And so, and I had, I was dealing. I had already dealt with mother, and so, and the mother was very, and I had a problem with Kijana. Kijana was a very studious, well-behaved student.
Yeah. We're having a little trouble hearing you. And I think when you, Robert Woods, are a little over, move your face over a little bit to the right.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that? Can
Right.
you
Yeah. That's good right there.
now? Can you hear me better? Did you
Yeah.
hear everything I
Yeah.
said?
Now it's real clear.
Okay,
So stay in
so
that spot when you're talking.
okay, I have to move out because you're gonna ask another question of the strategy.
Yeah, don't worry. Just any other impressions, if you have any other impressions of the students.
Well, as I said, the various personalities uh, were strong, and I seek not to interrupt that strength and try to meld that strength into a positive direction. So we were dealing with a lot of students. I don't want to interrupt their personalities, especially the strong personalities. I want to shape them and keep them strong because what they have to deal with outside, they're going to have strong personality dealing with society. So
Right.
that's the main thing I have to say.
Right.
Society takes some very, very strong students put on the air, and I appreciate that. And
Right.
I do say good morning to all of you. Good morning.
I would just like to say, I know this is like, hopefully this is like jazz, but I sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say how much of a deep regard I have for these two men, what an influence they were in my life, and um, they were the template. You know what I mean, for moving forward and what a man is, and the dedication they provided for us, patience that you don't understand until you have your own children. Just want you. I just want you to know what a deep regard I have for these two men, Babu Stadi and Brother Robert Woods, right now.
Very appreciative of that
Right on.
statement, brother.
Right on. Yeah, I think what you said, Robert, about working with their personalities and where you see strength and courage in it, bringing it out.
Right.
That's a very important thing. The public schools definitely don't do that. You end up being a discipline problem. You don't
Yes.
mouth or
Yes.
strength or anything like that when you're just young men and young women expressing yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you need that strength to deal with this vampire society.
Yeah, exactly.
Society. And I said to students, you looking at all these vampire shows, but you living with the vampires. You don't have to look at the shows. These are definitely the you know.
Okay, so I could hear you on that part as long as you're staying more to your right, and I can also
Okay.
see your face.
Okay.
So
All
what
right.
you need to do is also lift that computer up a little bit, and that way you can see the whole face. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
That's
All
better.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, now what I want to do is get into something they've already covered, and I want to have you to deal with this. You probably missed most of the discussion around the conditions in the Black community starting in 68. Studies familiar with the choice between two cultures that put our people in a position where families are getting mashed, drugs are in the community, Black communities are being heavily attacked. And so each one talked about how that impacted them. And Mensah talked about how that impacted him, that he basically had some help in the community, but there were some choices he was making, and then Ustadi was clarifying that in terms of how he was working with Mensa, for example. And Stephen was talking about when he left the house, there was really no hope the way the community was being hit
Right.
in Oakland. And Kajana was basically saying that she was in an Afrocentric cocoon, that she pretty much didn't affect her because her mother had been through it and she had instilled certain values in her. And then she's academically inclined, as it appears all of you are, you know, or were. So the question for you, I can start with you, Robert, and then Ustadi, is given the conditions that was hitting Black communities, was really putting the community in bad shape, how did that affect what you had to do in the classroom? What were some of the challenges that you faced, and how were some of the ways you were dealing with it when kids are coming in the door, coming out of that kind of environment?
Well, one of the things that we mentioned on the last show.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Move over a little.
Can you hear me now?
Move your head over to the right.
Can you hear me better now?
Right there. Go
Okay,
ahead.
how's the voice?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, one of the things that we mentioned on the last show is that during those times, especially in the 90s, all the way to the year into 2006, we did a lot of meditation. We meditated in the beginning of the school, and we read from the Husia, and then we would meditate, and then not a long meditation, 2 or 3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, but we would meditate before we even started. And at the end of the school, we also would meditate. So that was one of the ways that we coped with the situation of what going on outside the school.
Okay, meditation was one. Is there any other things that you were doing to adapt to these changed conditions?
Well, when we taught, not only did we teach history, but we taught about the story, I should say our story, because we don't call it history, we call it our story. When we talk about our story, we also talk about our story in the presence. So we talked about the drugs and things that were going on and how it was predicated on destroying our culture. So many of the students, especially the older students, got an understanding that these traps were laid. One of the examples I used to give uh, came out of Dick Gregory's his work, that he stated that we have the FBI.
Keep your head up.
Okay, the FBI is one of the top investigative groups in
Move
the world.
over a little bit. Your voice is fading.
Okay, because when I talk about moving, what are my problems?
Wait, I have a suggestion to fix the sound. Can you guys put settings on the screen, like where it says mute, stop cam, and then it says settings? Go to audio and unclick echo cancellation.
Oh, okay. Go to settings.
Then go down to audio.
Go to audio.
And then make sure echo cancellation is not on.
Okay.
That could be causing the problem.
Okay.
Echo. Oh,
There
it's
it is.
on.
Yeah, turn it off.
Turn it off. Turn the echo off.
Got it off again. Let me do that.
So how's it now?
Yeah, it's better.
Is it better? Okay, I was talking about what Gregory laid out. That the FBI
It's still low.
Okay. Top investigative group.
Move over a little bit to your right. Yeah, go ahead.
Better?
Yes.
All right, this top investigative group, he was saying that the FBI could not find the drugs, but you can go to any major city in the United States, and in 15 minutes, you can find where the drugs were being sold.
Yeah.
Where Any city. He said you can go to any city. 11-year-old, you can stop any 11-year-old child, and they can tell you who was selling the drugs and where they were being sold. So we understand that that was a plan. Drugs were a plan. Chemical warfare. That's what drugs are. If you think about the opium wars that waged against the Chinese people, and if you read that history, you understand what was going on and what is going on with Africans in this country.
Right on.
Okay, repeat the
Ustadi,
question.
Ustadi, move into Robert Wood's place. Move your chair over to his place. Okay, Ustadi, when you were talking about Mensa and how you brought him to your home and he stayed with you for a year, that was a part of a set of strategies you were using as things were getting worse in the Black community. Why don't you talk about some of the things that you did to get students ready for education?
Well, can you hear me first of all?
Yes, yes.
Almost everybody came in with some type of lack of self-esteem, lack of discipline. They gonna tell you what they gonna do and what they ain't gonna do. So the first thing you gotta do is try to explain to them that their only thing they're running here is their shoes over, which they're not paying for. So once we, especially with the boys was the biggest problem. They could be 10, but they ain't got no daddy. So first time they see a daddy figure, then they want to act like we got dresses on. Well, we could have had dresses on, but we had bass in our voice. So the thing that we have to do, we have to square that up. Once they understand that they're not running anything, that's why first thing was discipline, and one of the four pillars that we had. And mentors should be able to partake to that. Because he used to tell me what he ain't gonna do and what he gonna do. I think we got that squared away. So I'm not trying to be funny, but I just try to
Yeah,
keep it
I
real.
agree with that.
Oh, okay. Now that's good. I'm not
So,
surprised.
so the thing is just that you cannot teach if you cannot control your classroom. So that's why discipline is very important. You got somebody in the back throwing things, somebody talking. How can anybody learn? So that was, I think, so you can't really fault the kids because they be coming out of junior high school or elementary school where they had no direction. It's not their fault. I never want to fault the kid because they haven't been taught. I can't fault the kid because their father wasn't. I can't fault them. It's my job to square that up, to clarify that, because we're in two different roles. Some never had a father, and I never been without a father, so I know how to do it. So that was the basic thing, and the other thing is just that um, we had one kid. He was in Concord. Never thought he could do better than a D. We had one kid. I can't remember his name, but when he started getting B's and A's, he could not believe it because he came from Concord, and matter of fact, a lot of our students came from the suburbs, and we had some what you call it, inner city kids. But the key point is the expectations. So the expectation wasn't right. So a lot of times when they come, it's according on how damaged they are. They could be damaged. They think they never could get a better grade, and and the whole thing is let's give them that discipline. Let's teach them how to sit down, listen, turn your homework on time. Don't be lying. A whole lot of things. So to break them down to the very simple things, we had. Um, I have not made lying a habit. I have not. Uh, I have not harmed any boy or girl. I have not harmed any man or woman. So those are values. We try to stick those values on them. And the reason why is because a lot of times we're not going to be with you. So you got to have them in your head. For example, one of my Malik Abakari. That's my main man. um, he finally squared up, but Malik, I had Malik since about 8, maybe. I think we had Malik, and I never will forget. I could almost see them the day we was at Wall State third floor, and a pencil was on the floor, so I got the pencil, picked it up, and I'm using it, and Malik said, "That's my pencil." I said, "Man, this ain't your pencil." He said, "Have you made line and a half?" I had to give him the pencil because I'm the one that taught him. Have you made line and a half? I think he busted me. I never will forget that. So, so anyway, I see Malik every now and then. I see his daughter almost all the time. She love her daddy. But anyway, it's things like that you have to break. And I think the one of the most important things about kids that came to our school, the difference from that we're dealing with now than we did before is just that a lot of the parents was friends and they was in groups, but now almost nobody's in no type of group or association. So therefore it's like I know all three of them, their mothers, all three of them, and so that it's and that's very positive when you can do it. So then, if you have a problem with if you have a problem with the child, then the mother will be more receptive to even say, "Yeah, that's my child," as opposed to going to fight the teacher. I think that's very positive. Now we really don't have that per se.
Okay, your voice was good right up until the end. Now, um, you has what you call 4 pillars of education. Um, you stated what those 4 pillars were 2 weeks ago, and I'd like you to state it again, but I'd like you and Robert Woods to describe how you tried to get the students to practice those each one of those pillars. Could you first of all describe the 4, just to refresh people's memory slowly, state what each one of those were?
Okay, the first one is discipline. Everybody can laugh on that. I take my bow because because discipline is very simple. Sit down, be quiet, and be able to ready to do your homework. The second one was self-esteem. Self-esteem means that once I got you to sit down, then what I can do to you, then you're ready to hear I'm gonna control my thoughts, I'm gonna control my action. You have a reason behind that. That's self-esteem, and let you know with our story who you are. Then after that is academic. Without discipline, without feeling good about
You
yourself.
said academics. Your voice faded there.
Okay, academics.
Right.
Academics. I got you to sit down in your chair. I'm telling you who you are, self esteem, and now the academic. Now you're willing to listen to me to learn more and give you a reason to learn more. And the other thing is the last one was tough love. We let you have input on everything, but you ain't gonna make no final decision on nothing. So let's get that right. You see, so that's tough love. I listen to your show. Good time. But you ain't running nothing. Let's get this straight. Because you're too young to really know what you want to do. And it's my job to keep you from getting hit in the head like a lot of people have been. That's all I'm saying. So those are the 4 that I just ran by and gave you a real brief synopsis on each one of them.
So, what were some of the things that you and Robert Woods did to instill the discipline, high self-esteem, um, and the academics and the tough love?
I think one of the first thing is I'm gonna just run. I'm gonna stay in this. I just stay in the discipline aspect of it, which is not the child's fault if he's used to talking back to his mother or talking back to his mother. That's unacceptable. So we have what we call pages. Can everybody raise their hand if they still have pages that just do?
Every time I see parents that have kids now, I say, "Hey man, you keep messing. I'm gonna get that kid some pages." And they go automatically. He's in trouble. You know. What I'm saying? So the thing was, we get you to write. We let me clarify the word pages. Pages simply means that we Brother Woods was I could be easily compromised, but Brother Woods could not be compromised. But pages could be 5 to 10 to 15, for what you haven't did. If you like he was saying the last time we was on here, if you fail, say it's just we're doing geography, you fail geography, then you got to do maybe 10 maps, 5 maps, 20 maps, so we had that. But now every morning we had what we call value clarification for discipline too. We had value clarification. One thing what we did, we meditated, and then after that, we read our value clarification. What is value clarification? That means it's a moral compass that we try to use for my truth, justice, and righteousness, even as balance, pride, and all that. So we try to instill that in the head. Like I said once before, what are you gonna do when we're not around? We're trying to put something in your head, but when we're not around, you can. Is that right? So one of the things that we could easily do. If I gave you, everybody read a value clarification. Everybody also not only read, but they memorized some of the sayings in the Hosea. You know, like I think Patal Tep, I think stanza number one. It says, no, no, no. It says, I can't. But anyway, we would let you write on. We would let you write maybe two lines. Not 2 lines. I would take 2 lines. Be not arrogant. Be not arrogant because of your wisdom. Something like that. Be not arrogant because of wisdom, because the limit of knowledge in any field has never been set or reached. But yet it's found.
In other words, humility and knowing that you're never going to know everything.
But yet it's found but it's found with the women at the grinding stone.
Everyday people got wisdom.
Right. So what we would do, we would take them first 2 lines and they would have to write what, 1 page? 2 pages, and then they would get up and read it. So now that's just those 2 lines. So that's part of value clarification. So we're trying to instill something into their head. You see what I'm saying? So that's one aspect of doing discipline and also self-esteem at the same time. You see? And like Barbara Woods was saying, not only did we meditate, if you had jump in the morning time, leave whatever you had problem at home, leave it out there in the street. And we meditated on the way out. Leave whatever you had at school, leave it at the school. Because we tried to eliminate all that. But what we have to do, we have to give them something that they can memorize and put it in their head. So if they see something, just like he got me on the pencil, you know, have you made a line of habit? So they know lines should not be a part of their thing because you have to instill in it. It's how it's. I know you can say whatever you want to say, but redundance, redundance. When I get to the word, I use that example, uh, discipline. When Michael Jordan retired and he came back, during his retirement, he said he shot 500 free throws every day, not to mention the other shots he put up. So that's discipline. So you have to practice. If you do not practice, you are not going to put anything in this brain of yours. But your brain is a muscle. So that's just one aspect of discipline, and also self-esteem. Self-esteem is the my part, which I just ran by, and then Brother Woods can run down the academic and love.
Yeah, just to add to that, I found in life the two most important things are discipline, self-discipline, and good character. If you got those two that are guiding you, the other things are going to work because you can be ever so smart, but if you ain't got the discipline, and you can be ever so smart, but if you ain't doing right, You know what I mean? And this country's full of smart, crooked people. You know what I mean? So those two are crucial. You want to add to that, Robert Woods?
Let me say something before that. Within, within those fear,
Stotty, I can't hear you.
within those fear,
Can't hear you. Sit up.
go ahead, go ahead. See if I can.
Move over a little bit more, Robert Woods, to your right. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you very good.
Okay,
Okay.
so go ahead. What was the question
So
again?
the question is your four pillars of education. He already explained what they were. How did you instill it? What were some of the ways you instilled
On
it?
academics, right?
Well, it could be self-discipline, high self-esteem, academics, and what was the last one?
Tough love.
Tough love.
Love. Yeah.
Well, I think he explained tough love uh, pretty clearly. Um, the idea is tough love is that you love the students, but you have to have that continuity in disciplining the students, uh, whatever the situation calls for. So you have to have that continuity. And one of the things we did, we talked about writing pages, and the pages were on the Husia. I'm not the Husia, the virtues that we mentioned, the virtues, and several other things that we can come up with. You have to write pages on. Otherwise, you're writing an essay. When you write pages, you're just not writing, I will not do something 45 times. You're writing, uh, for instance, you're writing on I have not harmed any boy or girl, and you have to write an essay about that. And it has to be something that anybody can pick up and understand. So you got to write something that you have to think about. And some students become so good at it. We have students now, I've time students. Some students can write a page in 12 minutes on any of the virtues, and that's going some, So we have students who have to write 200 pages, and what we do, we used to have pencil parties. We had pencil parties. The pencil party was established primarily when we moved to Isabella. We used to keep students overnight. We do we run a shift. Ustadi would take uh, the he'll take it from 3 o'clock to midnight, and I come in at midnight, and I take it from midnight to 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and so we have those kind of things for disciplines. We will make sure that things get done, and I think that is important in the discipline. If you didn't do your homework, I double the homework. So it was wise to get things done, get them done on time. That's the type of discipline that we were talking about. Also, we did have what we called the paddle Board of Education. We used the Board of Education for a while, but
For a long while.
it's a long while. Yeah, it was suspended. Around 208, 209, somewhere around there. The board decided that we could not use the paddle anymore. So yeah, so I use right now I use jumping jacks, push-ups, uh, jump squats, and when I give you push-ups, I give 50 at a shot. Girls and boys, they have to do push-ups now. So right now I have a young lady who can do 50 push-ups, no problem. She's about 13 years old, and she's done so many push-ups. She's good at it. So good at it. So so those are kind of things for discipline. But it's with love. I joke about it. As a matter of fact, when I was using the paddle, I used to sing while I used the paddle. There's a thing going around like a lump of disease. Whap! so so, but I know that folks frown upon that type of discipline right now, but it worked. And like I said, it was not done with a lot of animosity. Uh, and so we can laugh about it. Students come and talk. We talk about those kind of things nowadays. They said we're too easy now because we don't use the paddle and those kind of things. So, so that's about discipline. Educational wise, the academics, as you said, every student we try to use an approach, especially in math, that you can work at your own pace as long as you're working. You can't sit and do nothing, but you can work at your own pace. And so, uh, students, we could have 10 students in the class, they all be at different levels mathematically. And so we could work like that. Uh, Language arts, the same thing, writing, you could be at different levels. And so we work at different levels, and the discipline comes in having a student. Like I think one of the students explained that we get stuck on a problem. We might be on that problem all day, and we may continue during lunchtime doing that problem, but we'll figure that problem out. Especially if we're trying to prove the answer book wrong, where we go through and we'll go at that problem, and we'll have two or three students working on that same problem at different from different angles, and we'll solve those problems. So that's the kind of academics that we like to get in. Right now, we're doing a lot of science. We do anatomy. Know thyself is the most important thing. So we do a lot of anatomy, knowing all the biological systems. And right now, I've morphed into. I have only a few students, so I'm been able to morph into pointing students in directions. Like I have a young lady now; she's a junior, and she wants to go into the medical field, and so all the science is pointed to the medical fields. So she's in deep in biology and different strategies in biology, upper and lower uh, parts of the anatomy, and knowing that thoroughly. Now, something happened just recently. One of the students who is a ninth grader, going into the ninth grade, I believe. Yeah, she's still in middle school. And she said, well, I'm interested in cosmetology. And can I deal with that? Since you guide students in their direction that they're going in. I said, well, yeah, you can do that, but I want you to find out what it takes to become a cosmetologist, and then we'll head in that direction. And she was trying to get out of some of the science that we were teaching, and I happen to know that the cosmetologists have to be deep in anatomy. So, so when she found that out, I said, "Yeah, we're in the right direction." So those are kind of things that we like to do in that. But I try to get students to think about where they're going, and and what I say that basics are the prime thing. If you get the foundation, you can go anywhere. You include building a bomb if you want to. If you got those foundations in physics, in concepts, in science, you can do everything's in writing. So you can do what if you got that comprehension and you got that will to study, that discipline, you can do anything that you want.
Yeah.
Can I?
Now, go ahead.
Come.
I apologize. But I didn't want this session to go without me at least saying this. I want to be very clear on this. I want everybody to understand this. ACALC, there is nobody that is messing with ACALC academically, hands down. Period. Not a Bishop O'Dowd. Not a no school.
Hmm.
No school can match ACALC academically. They just can't. Also, ACALC and CIBI schools are often chosen as the last choice when they should be the
Yes,
first choice. When
correct.
they should be the first choice. It's a child that's having an issue or a problem, and it may be a behavioral, it may be an academic, it may be a mental health thing, all of those.
Exactly.
And so then they choose ACALC and schools like ACALC because I don't know what to do with my child. I don't know what to do. Y'all
Yes,
figure it out.
yeah, yes. That's
And
what
so
happens.
I want people to also understand that if you start them in this way, then you can have them like we have this sister here on this panel who is saying it's just a part of who I am. part of my being.
Right,
So
right.
I want everybody to understand, if you really want it to happen and you really want it right, you need to invest in CIBI schools and ACALC and Elam Day and schools of that. Don't let them be your last. Be the first
He's
choice.
first, right on.
And I'm done with that.
I appreciate that. Right on. Right on.
Yeah, and I think also what you're showing here is that due to the changes in the Black community, and this was true before, even in the South, this was true, but it has to be truer now. Very often, the teacher is also playing a role as a parent. I mean, the fact that you all were up there 24/7. I mean, did anybody get that point? They were coming in for a full day working with somebody. And Scotty, he was telling me while he was doing it, he would have different kids. Mensah was one, but there were a bunch of others. He'd have them with their games coming over to their house, getting in their heads. So that is not just a classroom thing. In the old South, everybody in the community was giving
Right.
reinforcement, and the teacher was behaving like a parent. But now you have to. So anytime I even hear an independent Black school teacher saying, I'm only here to teach a subject, then I know they don't know what they're teaching to, because this is breakdown time. And in breakdown time, you got to do a lot to build people up. You know what I mean?
Correct.
That was a key thing. The other thing that you said that I thought was very important is people learn at their own pace, but you're also teaching to their gifts. If somebody's got a gift, so you've got a student who wants to be a doctor, so you're teaching to that. Now that's relevant education, but that's because you're coming from a different purpose in the education, which is to deal with the inner person,
Exactly.
So, I mean,
Exactly.
these are all heavy things that you're talking about. What I'd like to do is hear from all three of you on how you reacted to the 4 pillars, the discipline and self-esteem and the academics and the other things. How did you react to that? Anyone that wants to go first, take the
So
floor.
I have to say that I didn't even remember the pages, honestly. But what's funny is
You didn't get many.
yeah, exactly. I didn't get as many, right? I think I was pretty good. I wasn't as difficult, but I know that influence that had on me. And because of that, my children and my nieces and my nephews, when they mess up, they know they have to write pages. Like because and what really influenced me was because I remember my mom was very her regard for education is very high. She's like, you are going to get educated no matter what. So when it came down to me writing pages, there was one time where I was getting sick, and I told her that I wasn't feeling good or what have you. So she saw I had a fever, and she gave me some NyQuil. Well, then she found out I had pages due the next day, and she's like, nope, you're going to stay up and finish this, and you're going to turn it in tomorrow. After that, you can get some rest. But so that night, I was dozing off, drooling on the paper. I remember my words are like, you might remember this paper. They were all over the place, but I had to finish it. And I remember, that discipline that she was enforcing on me, and how that influenced me during that time, and how it made me want to. I'd rather do what I needed to do than do that ever again.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the point. Yes.
Right. So, and it's a great, and it's teaching you penmanship skills. It's teaching you to think. It's teaching you while it's disciplining you. It's a great method of discipline, and it has moved on to the next generation for me. I'd tell you that.
Yeah, and what I liked also what you said, Baba Woods, is that there was a reason behind it. So people are talking to whatever the paper is, whatever the point is, what's the reason behind it? And then by repeating it, you get it inside yourself. But it isn't just rote. There's a reason or reasons. Very important.
Right. And see, that's what I do is when I have them write pages, it's on what did you do? Like what happened? You don't have to tell me what happened. You don't have to explain it to me. You don't have to, try to convince me.
Right.
Tell the paper, write it down, right? And then tell me what your resolution is. Tell me what you got. Tell me what you think about it. You know what I mean? Because children will sit there and tell you till you are blue in the face exactly what's going on. Well, write it down, right? You know what I mean? Tell as many pages as you want. I want to hear a succinct point. If you have a point, make it on a page. If it's a valid point, then we'll go through with it. Otherwise, you ain't got nothing to say.
Right on. So the main point you're making there is this has become a part of your life. This wasn't
definitely heavy influence all the way around.
Right on.
Next.
I also like to talk about the discipline. Even though I was good in academics, I got a lot of pages at my time there. My thing, I think, was since I grew up in the African community, or African cocoon as we'll call it, I didn't have the influence of dealing with peer pressure the same way people in public school did. They had that very early, people could navigate it. So I had a moment where a year I wanted to be like the quote unquote cool kids who tried to rebel, didn't listen. Academics wasn't the first thing on their mind. And I was like, yeah, I want to be cool like them. And it did not last long. They made it very obvious, no, that's not the way to go. They're the people we're trying to reform and make them realize that education is first. And it took a while, but the school and my mother made sure to direct me back in the right direction. And pages, even though in the moment you hate them, they seem pointless, they just seem like a way to keep you from doing anything. Going out of it, now that I'm not in this school, that helped me so much learning how to write an essay, because now I'm one of the people who can write an essay so fast, it's nothing. The homework schedule as well, because you'll have an essay due and a book report due in a week, and it's not like surprising, it's every week. So a lot of people would wait to do it, and some people did it early. I was one of the people who started doing it early. The discipline helped with life skills that you needed later on, and I didn't recognize that while doing the pages, but after I got out, I was like, oh, I can write a 10-page essay in one sitting if I needed to, no problem. And it's because I had pages. They had requirements on pages as well that normal places don't, like 28 lines, 6 words or more per line, and 2-letter words don't count. And when you first hear that, you're like, so I doesn't count this? Like, it's like you see all the words that you use don't count. And then they added, oh, if you use a spelling word, bonus, you can get something off of it. And I started incorporating us getting a better vocabulary, and it was amazing. And it's definitely something you see after you're not in the situation anymore, how much it helped.
It sounds like, Jonah, you didn't need much tough love. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got that very strong in my foundation since my mom went to the school and she needed it. They gave it to her and she just birthed me and started giving me that. The school instills not to follow, because like the stereotype for women is, oh, you must cook, clean, and birth children and raise them. That's all you're good for in the world. And they instill, no, you guys can be smart, you guys can build stuff if you want, which is one of the reasons why I went into engineering. The school helped me decide that I did want to be a STEM major, and engineering is where I ended up falling into. And it's just something that's really nice, and I see the lack in people who didn't grow up in it, and also the people who rebelled against the teachings their entire time there.
What area of engineering are you in?
I'm in mechanical and civil.
Right on. Yeah, that's some serious engineering.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. It comes from building that engine that you put together. Remember?
They had area in science where we started doing hands-on projects, and we started funded it with their own money. So everyone took it seriously since we don't have funding from like the government or anything. And I remember he helped. We went to a field trip to go pick out projects, I think from Barnes and Nobles and places like that as well.
Right.
And we had a crystal project. We had a robot cat that, like, when it hits obstacles, it's supposed to turn itself around. I think that's the only one that everyone struggled to get it to work perfectly because of the wiring.
Yes.
And then for one of my personal ones, since I wanted to go into engineering, they got me to build a motor, like a car engine motor. And I struggled with it for so long. But when I finally got it to work, it was amazing. And I was just so happy and proud of myself about it.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right. Brother Mensa.
Yeah, I just want to echo what the other brothers and sisters have already said. As far as discipline, I was tough. So, I had a lot of pages and a lot of it was just a lot. But what I take from it though is that I have also instilled it with my sons. They can tell you about pages, they can tell you about critical thinking, they can tell you that it's really about development, right? And so the other thing about that is when you talk about education or academics, right? We did so much. I'll give you an example quickly. I left ACAL because I was doing whatever I was doing, and I went to another school. It was a private school. And the first day I went there, me and my mother were just looking at the school, not sure if I'm going to go there or not. They were having a test, a history test. It was not multiple choice. It was fill in the blank. And they were going to take the test, and they were like, "Oh, you can just sit back and watch." And I was like, "No, let me look at the test." And they were like, "Well, we're going to be taking it in about 5 minutes, so don't worry about it." I say, "No, give me the test. Let me take a look." So I get the test. I look at the test. I say, "I'll take the test." I get the test. I take the test. Teacher looks at me because the teacher is grading as we're handing in the test. Say, "I don't understand. You looked at it for 5 minutes and you got 100%.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I also didn't understand really. But what the point that I'm making is that because of ACAL and just the rigorous education, the level of academics, it was nothing. I wrote my senior thesis, really, and I'm not condoning this. I wrote my senior thesis in a week. Now, I had done all the research throughout the semester, but the actual writing portion, and that was with 3 rough drafts and a final in a week. So all of that is to say is that all of this is real world application. All of the things that I learned at ACAL, like I applied now, even in my job now, it's constant testing, it's constant knowledge, it's constant continued education. They are pushing you to the point where they want to vet you. They want to vet you. And for me, it's like, hey, it's nothing. Let's go. I got all the rule books and all that, but it was because of that foundation. It was because of that foundation. And then we understand what it is with the tough love and also with the self-esteem. Like, I'm an African and that is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Self-determination is key, period. You can't tell me anything different and you can't tell my children and my community anything different. So all of these things, those 4 pillars are ingrained in me, and then I ingrain them in my children and the people around me and everything that I deal with. So I'm ever so grateful for it. And just like Stephen said, I'm grateful for these men because they are the prototype. And also I wanted to shout out to Stephen's mom because there was times where it was tough for me where she was like, "Hey, come over to the house, chill out with Stephen." You know what I'm saying? And so it was like, it's a good look. The community, it's a good look all around.
Appreciate
There's a real important point here that you all are saying, and that Ustadi and Brother Woods was saying. Real education is internalized. Real education is something that you don't just prat off, you live. And what you all are saying is, in different ways, I use this way, I use that way. That's real education. Because in African education, to know the truth is to be the truth. In Western education, to know the truth is to repeat it. And repeat it after the exam. But y'all living it. I say right on.
Right on.
Right on. That's the whole point. I also want to say, and I think you all know it, Baba Woods and Baba Ustadi, they teach, but they also do other things in their community. Baba Woods is a master poet and knows African American culture inside out. Ustadi is the community organizer, master mechanic, master printer, master mathematician in the science. But his real science is the science of the mind, both of them. And Ustadi, one of the shows we did was on how we spotted the CIA trying to infiltrate our organization. Who did I stick on him? Ustadi. Why? Because Ustadi is going to play dumb on you. He's going to play like, oh, he doesn't know. You know what I mean? Well, he's scoping you out and then setting you up. You understand? So, but the point is, a good teacher practices what they're teaching. It's not just teaching a lesson, they're teaching life. And what I say about these two brothers, they're master teachers because they're servants to their community. They care about their community. And that's why they love you all. You know what I mean? Now, one of the things that your education at ACAL does is reinforce African values. And so you use that old system of the 10 cardinal virtues in Kemetic thought. Y'all remember that? The 10 cardinal virtues? Those are old. That's old teaching, but it's good teaching. Could you just remind people of what some of those virtues are and how you instill them?
Well, are you asking us the students or the teachers?
Starting with Brother Woods and Ustadi, and then we'll go to you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you slide in because you hadn't been on. Go ahead.
Move exactly where Woods was, Ustadi. Move over where he was. Move your chair over more to the left.
Value clarification was more my thing, though Brother Woods knew it. The 10 virtues which came out of Stolen Legacy. It's in that book, but it also came from Kemet. I must control my thoughts. That's one. Other ones, I must control my actions. One of the things, if you control your thoughts, you ain't got to hit nobody because that's your action. I must have a devotion to purpose. What's your purpose? Why are you going to school? Why are you even thinking about living? Okay. I must have faith in my teacher to teach me the truth. I must have faith in myself to assemble the truth. Once I teach you the truth, then you got to assemble it in your head. That's what you was talking about, Mensa. After that, I must have faith in myself to will the truth. That means to give the truth out. You have to disperse the truth. You see? You must be free from resentment under experience of persecution. Ain't nobody said they've been persecuted, but they've been talking about. That's why the next one's comes. I must be free from resentment under experience of wrongdoing. Everybody around been wrong done. You see what I'm saying? The other one is I must have faith. Not yeah. I must have faith in myself to distinguish the real from the unreal. Now what's that? Everybody wear a Spider-Man outfit, but don't try to fly like Spider-Man. Don't believe in that. Does it does it make sense to y'all? So it's not funny, but it's just it's just an example. So we have to we have to keep this very real, you know. So those are the things that we did doing. That was all a part of. I have not made line of habit. We had a whole slew of those that we would do. This once again, put it in your head. You have to think about it. Now, how would that be manifest? That becomes the question. How do you manifest? If your kid want to get in a fight, was you really controlling your thoughts when you did that? Because your thoughts lead to what? Your action. Am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Now, if you're in school, you gotta have some devotion to purpose. You gotta have. What's your purpose? What's your purpose of being here? You see, so they're not complicated at all. It's just that how do you incorporate them in your life? That's one thing. Just like old folks, they never went to school. Some of my aunties, uncles, but they understand the importance of land. You see, so it's that kind of thought process. But that's what we was basically talking about. And Chaka's question was, how did you incorporate some of those thoughts into your thought process? Now, I'll give you an example. Uh, Kijana, your mother willed you the truth simply because she knew what she didn't want you to have. And what you don't want to have is just as important as what to do. Is knowing what not to do is just important. You see what I'm saying? Like I know my brother would borrow things and bring them home, and my father told him he was borrowing too much and let somebody else. He didn't use the word borrow. He said he's finding things. Daddy told him let somebody else find this stuff. You're finding too much, so that means you were stealing. He didn't tell him you steal. He said you're finding too much. Don't find nothing else. You see what I'm saying? So that, it's not funny, but this is just practice. So in other words, you should be around here trying to distinguish what is yours and what isn't yours. Does that make sense to y'all? So that was the whole concept. That's the way I was seeing things when I was giving you those things. You know, that's all I'm saying. And like Mensa said, in life is a continuous learning process, and you're continuously gonna be tested. So the question is, when you're tested, can you will the truth? You already assimilated. Now you got to will the truth on whoever you're dealing with, irregardless of the job, irregardless. Some of us, like me, I'm uh, I'm not employable because I ain't worked for nobody in 50 years. So that make me unemployable. That means I cannot take no. Why? Because we learn to think for yourself. You have to think for yourself. See, why would I say that? That's distinguish the real from the unreal. Why would I say that? Because now watch. Everybody knows where McDonald's is in any city because they got them big arches. But they advertise all the time. They done sold over 5 billion hamburgers. Why do they advertise? To keep it on top of your mind and keep your money. So now now, if you go buy McDonald's and don't go there and buy and cook your own stuff, it's much healthier. But it's the thought process. You have to think for yourself. Does that make sense to you? So we can change the world, but first of all, we got to change ourselves. It's not hard, but you have to think. You have to think for yourself. And once you're in business, like I have to think for myself all the time. So I have a whole different thought process, a whole different thought process. So that's life. That's life. But anyway, so much for that. I think the question was on y'all.
Yeah. Before that, I want to say that's reinforcing the self-discipline, but it's reinforcing it at a level of deep values. So you're always thinking about stuff. There's a saying in Kemetic thought: never speak until you've thought about it. Think before you speak. And the worst things you ever do in life is when something comes out of your mouth you didn't think about. That's when you're in trouble. You know what I mean? So that whole set of cardinal virtues, you're talking about people practicing it. So with y'all, Mensa, Kajana, Stephen, how did those cardinal virtues affect you?
So I personally, if I may start, I see this all as building of yourself, right? So we talk about the foundations of who you are and what comes from that, right? So learning these virtues as a child is interesting because you get to see once the foundation is placed, what comes from it, right? Like I don't. What's funny is I haven't heard these virtues since I've been in ACALC, and they just resonate every time. For every virtue you just said, I can remember it all now for some reason, and it's interesting how that reflects in what I do, and how powerful that type of foundation is, right? Um, Seeking the truth, knowing the truth, believing that you can will the truth. It's amazing how like I said, I it's funny because I don't I don't, even though I don't see these words every day, they are such a foundation in my life right now until it's like the first day I heard it, and I see it reflected in my everyday life. And I think that shows to how important it is to establish these foundations when you're young, right? When you establish those foundations early, those solid foundations, those strong foundations, you have a stable house. You have something to build on, and what comes from that becomes strong, right? It's these loose foundations that people have in their life, or none whatsoever, that causes their whole world to crumble because they have nothing to follow, right? So I would just like to say that, yeah, I even though I haven't heard those words spoken in excess of 30 years, um, it's how strong that is in my life. I see it in my everyday, in my acceptance, in my non-acceptance of what I see every day, and my search to constantly follow the truth behind everything that I see, and that make sure that my actions are virtuous to myself, my family, and my community. Right.
Very important. Yeah. Next.
I'll go next. I also saw a comment that's a question that I wanted to address that I can weave into this. I also had, when you said the virtues, I was like, oh my God, I know them, but I cannot think of them off the top of my head. But I have still lived by them since they have been instilled inside of me. And the question that I saw was if we think academics and education is the same thing. And I don't. And the school does a very good job at teaching the difference between academics and education. A lot of public schools won't teach you education, they teach you academics. And one of the biggest things that ACAL offers is teaching vital education. They teach us real life things that we actually will need when we grow up. I think I learned more in depth about taxes, mortgages, being an entrepreneur at this school is something that I will never learn in a public school setting. And then they also taught us the importance of academics, which is just, math, science, how the body works, how plants grow, stuff like that. And I think that everything they've done weaves into the virtues and also the virtues of Mayada as well. And they've done a really good job at practicing what they preach and teaching us that you can't preach something if you're not going to do it as well.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I say for me, I'm on maybe on the other side of it, in that I remember them. I had them hanging up on my son's wall, and that's the Declaration of Innocence as well as the 10 Virtues. And so for me, it just helps to support and reestablish and reaffirm the way that we should go. And I'm not saying that I don't fall down and we don't make mistakes, but what do you learn from them, and what can you gather from that? So it is a huge, just like all of you have said, it's a huge part of my life. It always will be, and it will be a part of my community's life because I use them. Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah, so the key thing here is that practicing what you're taught, you're living it, is not just some information for a test. It's for life. As both Ustadi and Robert Woods were both saying, it's education for liberation, for life. One of our people here asked the question of what are you doing with the education you received at ACAL to improve your community? Anybody wants to discuss?
Well, I'll say that first of all, I'm a Freemason, and so I do work through this organization. I'm also a part of Order of the Eastern Star because I'm a Freemason, and I've done various types of work in the Las Vegas community, as well as in the Bay Area community, and we'll see here in Oregon. But so that's part of it. And then besides that, just on a daily basis, like really just trying to live right and trying to do things so that I always want to leave things better than I got them. I always want to try to put out a lot of positivity because this world is toxic. It's very cruel. This wilderness will swallow you whole if you will allow it to. So for me, it's about really spreading that positivity, and doing it as far as tangible resources, not just lip service, right? Not just talking, but really giving out backpacks, really giving out food, really giving money, resources, right? And then also passing along that knowledge. We have what I call nieces and nephews in college now. We just gave a scholarship to a brother that's at Howard. He's his freshman year at Howard. He's doing very well. And we have another sister that's at UNLV. She's in her freshman year at UNLV, and both of them and then we have another. I don't know this younger brother, but he is at school somewhere. But we gave them scholarships, right? And they call all the time. We talk just to get perspectives on things. They're doing very well. This is things that was passed down to me. The only reason why, education the key, but the only reason why I really went to college and continued on, because it was a struggle, is because of what I received, the foundation that I had. So, that's how I pay it forward in the community. Things, small things. I see somebody that's young and, hey, bro, tie your shoes. You feel me? Hey, I see y'all out here standing in these candy bars, or y'all spraying windows so y'all can get money. I respect that. I respect your hustle. And no, I don't need your candy bar, but here goes this $5, this $10, and keep doing what you're doing in this way. Because if we don't give them the resources, then they will find another way to get the resources. So we have to support that. So that's the work that I'm doing in my community.
Anybody else?
So I would like to say that when I look back on the work that a lot of you are doing in the community, it makes me feel like I'm lacking. But you know what? I start to remember, just like what Mensa said, it is important to be that positive person in the community. Community is made up of people, right? And one of the people that has to change is you. You're an influence on your community, right? So if everybody said that, the community would be absolutely amazing, right? You wouldn't have to go out there and make huge changes, just yourself, right? So you go out there and you be that positive influence to the people. You be that virtuous person, that person that is not going to go out there and destroy, but create, right? It's not going to be out there to put down, but to build up. You know what I mean? So sometimes it doesn't have to be going out there and being an amazing teacher like Malustani and Brother Woods, but just being a positive influence to the people that are around you, right? Letting them know that there is a better way, there is hope, right? And I'm here. You know what I mean? We get so many people out there that discourage you and make you feel like there's nothing else out there. But, seeing those positive people in the community, being that positive person in the community inspires people. Even if it's a little thing here and there, just be that person,
Very good.
We're going to move on to another component. This is real important. And we had a question that this is also going to tie in with an answer. And that's Lao Tzu, who's one of the people that asked real deep questions. He said, questions for the teachers: what distinguishes your method of pedagogy from Marva Collins? The second question is, how does the curriculum of school structure to solve the problems in the community? Now, here's the point we want to get into in this discussion, and then we can see the difference in the system of teaching in ACAL and someone like Marva Collins, who, by the way, was teaching a Eurocentric curriculum but trying to teach the kids so that they know Shakespeare and everything else. So her subject matter definitely wasn't African centered, but she certainly had a concern that students learn. So the topic here for today is the Kemetic art of teaching, which is Seba, that opens the door to the student's inner light. So this is the question on Seba, because SEBA or SBA was the meaning of education in Kemet. And it basically meant bringing out the light that is within, bringing it out. That's basically what it meant. When the Greeks got it, they transferred it to meaning bringing the light out of the male student. The female was excluded. In Africa, the mother's the first teacher, so the whole model of education starts with the mother. She's the deepest thinker. She's the subliminal teacher, you know? She can tell you stuff about yourself you're not even aware of. My mother would drop that. At 70 years of age, telling me stuff about myself that I had to say, oh, you know what I mean? So the European method is a banking system where they're out to give you information so you can regurgitate it, repeat it, and they call that education. And then they'll say something critical about it. That's supposed to be critical thinking. But you better say what they said to you and repeat it. You're not getting an A unless you do it. Am I telling the truth? I did teach at university for 40 years, and I know this ain't education. This is training.
That's
So
fact.
the Seba system is bringing out what is within. So the Kemite, the Egyptians said, every human being is a star. And what modern research on astrophysics shows is the human being is made up of the same components as a star. We're miniature stars. And we all come in here to rotate in our own way because of our own gifts. So last week, Ustadi, you said that the goal of education at ACAL was to bring out the student's best self. And I thought that was a good way of putting it. And that's the essence of bringing out the gifts that are within, the best self. How tragic that a lot of people live their lives and don't even know their best self. They don't trust it. People have told them that they shouldn't do this or think like this. And so they end up living miserable lives. You know what I mean? Because they don't even know their gift or pursue it, you know? So what we want to do today was you and Robert Wood to discuss what are some of the ways y'all use to bring the gifts out? To first of all, know the gifts, to recognize that students have particular gifts, and then to bring it out. Some of this came out of the discussion where Brother Robert Wood was talking about Kajana and her interest in putting things together and the project that you had. And so that told him something about you. Because teaching, a good teacher is a student.
Her name is
Good
Mara
student is a
Collins.
teacher. So Stoddy and then Robert Woods would follow. What are some of the methods that you all have been using to bring out the best self of the person?
I think I like to say first is whoever asked that question, what's the difference between Miss Collins and ACAL? I don't know Miss Collins all what she did. I think if I'm correct, she's out of Chicago and she had a school. And the thing is our we used to have 90 students, but we broke that down to where we only had 30 students. So when you get big, it's all based upon the teachers. If the teachers are not coming from the same conscious level, then you you can say one thing, but you actually getting another thing. So just like a problem, there's always more than one way to solve a problem. So I cannot answer that question. What's the difference? Because I never went to her school to watch her school and assess her school to differentiate what she did and what we did. Now,
So how do you? What are some of the methods that you all use to to spot a student's gifts and to encourage them to come out so they can shine?
okay, one of the things that the easiest way for me is to assess a student on their not only
Keep
their
your
attitude,
keep your keep yourself straight, Ustadi, so we can hear you like that. Go ahead.
okay, so one thing is to assess the student discipline. That's number one. Their discipline. Let me clarify discipline. Whether they listen well, whether they do their homework on time, whether they ask good questions. Now you can tell whether or not a student is really getting what you're telling them by the question that they're asked. And if it's a good question, then you know they're pretty deep. Okay, I'll give you an example. I would take that was when Stephen was in there. We're going back a little bit, Steve. We would have open house, and I would let I think in Naka, I think it was Malia and Naka, Kavaragu, Stephen, and I would I would let I knew Molly was sharp, so if we had open house, I would let Malia give people math problem, and they would have to do it in front of the parents or do an open house. So I wasn't even up there at all. Why? Because I assessed that the Malia was sharp, Paparago was next, and then Stephen Bonard. And there was somebody then what I left out. Naka, right? So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so they was on. They was on. How would I assess that? I would assess by the way they did their work and how methodical it was. Cause I try to give them one, two, three, four. Well, when you do a math problem, you got 1 through 10, and we would do hard word problems. If I'm correct, is that right, Steve? We do word problems
Oh yeah,
at
definitely.
the
Yeah.
yeah. And I remember having somebody come up to me afterwards and say, "Oh man, they real sharp. I'm in the 10th grade and I couldn't do some of their problems." The thing is now what I'm doing, I'm putting them in the front of people. Don't even look at me. What I say, don't look at me. Don't ask me how to solve it. That's y'all problem. And then that built up the self-esteem. I don't know if he was afraid. You remember that, Stephen?
Oh yeah, I do. I
Were
absolutely do.
you afraid? Were you afraid or what?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
Not
but
at
see,
all.
and so the thing is, not only do they have to show what they're doing, but they got to bring it out. Does that make sense? So the question is, I'd already assessed what their best thing was, and even if we wasn't doing that, I think I don't know. Was you there when we did Minister Pressure and Malik wrote the whole play?
I think
I
so.
guess
Yeah. That
he
sounds
wasn't.
familiar.
Well, okay, you wasn't there. But anyway, I'll give you an example. What school? His sister was going to another school in San Francisco. They invited us over to to do a play. So the same little brother that asked me, "Have I made Line a Habit?" I should have got him. Made Line a Habit. The school wrote a play. Matter of fact, y'all wrote all the plays. They did the whole thing. So what am I saying? How would I know? I didn't know until I let them do something, and then they'll come out. Matter of fact, when we
So,
did that,
so,
so
Yeah,
so
one,
I think I was a part of that first play, wasn't I? With remember Suleiman? It was Suleiman to me on one of the
oh
skits.
yeah, was that Minister Pressure? We went to San Francisco to do it at a school, at
Oh, it wasn't that one.
another
It
school,
wasn't that one. The one I did, I think, was at Will say.
and you guys used Magnanimous, and you was a lawyer. Caparago was a lawyer. Who was a lawyer? Maybe I'm getting it mixed up. But anyway, the key point is they would write all the word. They would write the whole play, and they would perform the play. What would I say? I'm out of it. If y'all mess up, what would I say? I'm gonna laugh at you, right? So the thing was, we would give them free range to do what they wanted to do, and when it come time, they're in a cocoon where everybody there is watching them, so it's on them. And I think, did you guys like that when you did the play, Steve?
No, but it taught us a lot. It taught us a
Yeah.
whole lot
Okay, because you have to depend on who?
on us. That's right.
There
So
you
yeah,
go.
we have to. That's right, and each other too.
There you go. And that was the whole point on the whole thing. So
So,
we
Scotty,
brought. Hmm?
Scotty, so the question was, how do you spot students' gifts? How do you help bring it out? And it
Oh,
seemed one of the answers you gave was when you identified their best thing. One
exactly.
was when you saw the best thing, that's telling you something about the best side of the person inside, which is usually, if you ask a person, that's their dream, that's their wish. You know what I mean? That's what they enjoy doing most, that best thing. Pursue
Right.
that a little further.
And all I'm saying, what I'm trying to clarify here, if somebody want to be in charge, then they're going to be the one running their mouth, and they want to be in charge. If one wants to be quiet and do the problem, that they're going to be good at that. Does that make sense to you? But it was brought out by putting you in a pressure cooker, and then we'll see who's going to rise to the top. And that happened a whole lot of time, and it gave them self-esteem. That was the other side. Now the question becomes, how do you know what their talent is? Is by giving them different challenges and see who's gonna raise up. I give you an example. Uh, when I was doing the math, I can't even think of the girl's name, but Kijana and this other start with M.
Messiah.
Messiah. I told them I wanted to do 1, 2, 3, 4. When you do your math problems, right? I wanted you to list them down. The steps, right? I told you guys that. So I noticed that her and Messiah would always be on it, and others wouldn't be on it. So then they're gonna be pretty sharp. The same thing in chemistry. We did math and chemistry. They gonna be sharp. That's how you already know. What's her thing? You saying you're doing engineering, right?
Yep,
It's already
mechanical
it's
engineering.
already it's already showing. So what you try to do when you bring it out, then if you go to chemistry, then you use the math problem of it, not just the they got the math aspect of it. I can't name all of them right off the top of my head, but then you just stay on the math. So when you're doing the math, you're doubling up in chemistry and you're doubling up in algebra just doing math, because you're doing math problems in both of them. So you're getting them strong in the suit. Does that make sense to y'all?
Yeah, so you're saying that, for example, with Kijana, what you're seeing is inclination towards math and inclination towards science. That's where she's really good. And that is really showing you the light that is within her,
Exactly.
the special light, because we all got lights, meaning gifts, but there's the special ones. And that's the joy in life. One, to identify it. Some people, some students know. They don't have to be told. My mother was
Exactly.
like that. Me, I didn't know. I had to find out. Some have to find out. But the ones that find out, whatever help they can get, it could be a teacher, it could be your parents, it could be something that you do in the community, that tells you, oh, this is what I like. But
Mhm.
point is, when you find that, that's your purpose.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's why you're here.
Mhm.
There's a lot
Mhm.
of other reasons, but that's the central thing. And when you tune into that, that's happiness.
Yeah, the light
Sure.
the light for her, and I'm just using you because you're here. Uh, is just that she became very methodical on what she did, and I appreciate that. Even when we did geometry, she was very methodical, and I like that. And then the other side, then the best part is, if I know you're good, then I'm gonna let you show the other students what to do because you're good. You set an example. I ain't gotta ask you because you already showed me what's in you. So then you have to bring it out on the other one. Sometimes peer to peer is better than teacher to peer.
Right.
Because then that way they'll listen more or they can use their own words. So that was just one way that I try to do it, chocolate. And everybody has a gift. It's just that what the gift is. Somebody's better writer. Some people can put them words down by with no problem at all. It'd be very succinct. It don't be verbose. So they could do that. And that takes time though, Shop. You ain't gonna get that. You ain't gonna get that in a month. You're not gonna get it in a month. You're
No.
not gonna get it. They gotta show it. I tried to get. I don't know how many people remember Ali, but I found him, but I couldn't get his phone number in time. But he was very sharp too, because he had a lot of things going, which is really positive. Just like all of the students, it's just that it takes time. The more time on task, the smarter you get. And the most important thing on the virtues is if I want to try to bring the light out, is that there is no fault can be found in good instructions. Okay, but no instructions can succeed with bad character. You see, so you got to have good character, and that's the whole thing, to bring things out, to see the light, like Seba. That's what you have to do, and that might take you a year, Shaka. Easy, brother Shaka. That might take, because it's not that simple, and I don't think nobody in here I ain't spent some years with. You follow what I'm saying? Years. It's not like, see, in the regular schools. I don't know. That's a good question, and I'm not zigzagging on Collins. I don't know if Collins you went to another teacher every time and every time. You see what I'm saying? We taught multiple subjects. Does that make sense to you? That's what we did. We taught multiple subjects. So that means we have to be deep in everything, and we can coexist and have some continuity. Whereas you go from one class to another class, there's no continuity in the teaching styles, and what they think in their value system. So that's just a thought process.
Yeah. So Mensa, Kajona, Stephen, did your education in any way help you to see the gifts inside of you, or to refine them, improve them, develop them?
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think among many other things, this education that I was blessed to receive, it also taught me perseverance and resiliency. We get knocked down a lot of times, but it's about like how you get up and how you move forward. And we've all faced some really hard things, but I will say that this education in me, and what it continues to do, because it's a constant process. I'm not up here, I'm not no saint or whatever, but what I am saying is that it has taught me to seek out the positive, to put out the positive, and to really, no matter what my circumstances or what's going on in my surroundings, to understand that I have control of the situation, and I can do what's necessary to navigate what else is going on around me, period. And so that's what this education, more than anything, I mean, of course, you have the academics, like the sister said, right? The academics tells you your structure, whatever. But education-wise, like resiliency, being strong, being steadfast, and like pushing on, because it's too much work to do. It's too much work to do.
It is a lot of work.
That's key.
So I've come up around quite a few educators. My mom was an educator. My wife is an educator. And like you guys were saying, there's a difference between academics and education, right? So a teacher who has been around their student for any amount of time, has gone through anything with their student, and doesn't know what they excel at, is not educating them. They're just throwing academics at them, right? You're not teaching the class. You're instructing the individual, right? So like the problem today is if you can't, as a teacher, figure out what your students are excelling at, you are not teaching them properly. You're not interacting with them properly. You're not getting involved with them properly. You should know them as an individual and what they excel at. I mean, just that just comes out. It's like magnetism, right? Once you toss somebody into different difficult things, after a while, what they are good at, what their direction is going to be, it's magnetic. They're going to start pointing towards it. They're going to start doing it, right? They're going to be good at it. They're going to desire it, right? You're going to see that. So, and I think that's one of the things that ACALC was able to do was be able to give us that individualized education, and be able to say, okay, this is what you are good at. This is what you need to excel at. But not just coming to that conclusion by just staring at you, but by giving you the rigor to be able to distinguish, shake out what's coming to the top, what's difficult, what's easy, what you need, the direction you need to go, right? So that is what education is, right? For the individual to go through those trials and tribulations, see what rises, what falls, and what direction you deserve, what desire, and what you're intended to do, right? It's more than just throwing knowledge your way. It's more of helping you rise in the areas that you need to. And I think that's what ACALC was able to do for me.
That's a real good point. Kajana?
Yeah, I completely agree. The education was definitely a stronger foundation that was definitely needed by a lot more people. They have given a lot of good direction to me. Even though I still carry it on in college with peers that I have had to let go because education is not their number one. And even though you can sometimes have friends with conflicting views and what they want to do with their lives, it's best to have a solid foundation of people who also care about their education. I've had a few friends who flunked out simply because they went to college and started partying, and it was like they had parents that didn't care, so they partied throughout high school, and they just had more freedom here, so they did it as well. And I've had to let go a few who got into some other stuff in school instead of education, and this school has taught me how to do that without feeling remorse, because I was really nice to people, didn't want to unfriend people if they didn't like do something wrong to me. But I remember Babu Stadi and Babu was always teaching me, well, what's your purpose in life? What do you want to do with your life after you leave school? And I think I had it easier than other people. I got to figure out the answer very quickly with their help. I think they asked me that question the last time in 8th grade, because I was about to go to 9th and they wanted to start teaching me science or whatever I actually wanted to major in. And that's when I decided that I wanted to go into engineering. I wasn't sure at the time which engineering, so they gave me like the key pointers of each, had me do research on them, and then that's where I settled on mechanical. I ended up double majoring in civil with the guidance of them as well, after having my intro to engineering course. And yeah, it's just something that you carry along with you throughout your life.
I think that, Stephen, you really hit the nail on the head when you said it's not education if you don't know the gifts of the student you're teaching to, because that's also going to be teaching you. Because first of all, you've got to work to find out what that is, and then you've got to direct your education to that. And then if they come up with insights, you learn from that. That's why a good teacher is a student. And the first studious thing is to study the student to know them. Who are they? So yeah, that's true. Western education just teaches information to drop it on for memorization. And you end up being functionally illiterate if that's the kind of education you got. All you're good at quoting other people, usually white people. But it ain't good if you're quoting just black people either. It's better if you're the right quote, but it's not good enough. What's your thoughts? And we come to the final one. So I really want to stress this. Bringing the light out within, that's the essence of education. By the way, I'm writing a book on that to replace the Western system. I finished 671 pages. I'm revolutionary. So these are replacement systems you can use now but use them in the future, you know? So the final one for this discussion, and I really enjoyed this, and you all are heavy, proud of all of you. Sharp people, but not just sharp, loving, and conscious. And that's the most important thing, you know? Um, so, Ustadi, when we were talking, you were talking about the fact that the ultimate aim, one of the ultimate aims of education is to think for yourself.
Hmm.
And all of this has been going around that, because if you're dealing with your own gifts, then you're going to have your own spin on a lot of things. You know what I mean? And if you know more about your people, you're going to know more about yourself, and it's going to cause you to think more deeply about yourself. So you gave an example of how it's important that using math as an example, but it applies to any subject area. For students to see the answer, to discover the answer themselves, if it's a math problem, or if it's interpreting something in literature or whatever it is, when they see it. And Kajona, you were talking about how you actually, you all were talking about how you proved the book was wrong in one case. Oh, that must have been real empowering.
It was so empowering because like I found it like the middle of math because I got it wrong and it was like go back and show your steps, and I was like I went through my steps like 5 times. Everything was right. I had another student go through my steps. They're like, no, it looks right. And then we like conversed with each other. We're like, do we want to challenge the book? Are we gonna do this? We did, and we worked through it until like halfway through our lunch period. They realized it was right, and it was a long process, but it was a nice triumph.
Now, you want to talk about some high self-esteem? How high do you get when you do that?
Yeah, it was so nice.
Who did the book?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
I love that moment.
And it's not arrogant. It's based on practice.
Yep.
Uh-oh. What else can you do?
Mhm.
Naughty, so some, just give, and Robert Woods can comment on this, just give some things that you've done, and Robert Woods can do the same thing, to encourage creativity by our students thinking for themselves.
Well, you know what she just said. I wish I'd have got. They used to get mad at me because we would. They really did. It was in trade. We was doing trade,
Hold
and
up. It's shy, can't hear you. Look straight up.
okay, I should have had maybe a Shoka. Sheikah had to work, but they went as far as trigonometry, right? And so I would not give them the answer. I would never give them. They might have to work on a problem for a while because, just like Kijana said, there is nothing better than figuring out for yourself. You feel so good because you won, you beat something, you got it. You see what I'm saying? That's the key to everything because you did it. Look, what happened was I'm a printer, so you can put the wrong answer on the wrong number real easy, and you guys did that. But nothing can make you feel better, right, Kijana?
Yeah, that
And
moment
then
is still.
yeah, see that it stays with you, and the reason why I know that is just that although Bomani was when I was out of state, he was the tutor, so I didn't have to worry about going to tutor hall because all I had to do is call Bomani when he got home and he could help me, right? But we used to do those calculus problems. They might have 15 steps,
Yeah.
and so man, you get stuck on the 10th step. Oh man, you see what I'm saying? But once you got it, there is no better feeling because you ain't asked nobody, but you got it. And you guys worked through lunchtime, right?
Yep, we sure did.
You see now that you can't take that feeling away. And one thing you cannot ever take away is that memory. Is that right?
Yeah, no, it's one of my proudest moments.
Exactly. And see, if you get that, then the world is open to you because you're not afraid to challenge, and the world will challenge you know, just like I said before, we can change the world. At first we change ourselves.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And so you already know you got it. Can't nobody take it for you. Challenge the teacher.
Hey,
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying?
that's true.
Now that's thinking for yourself. That's what that's about. So that was one of that was one of the things I never gave up no easy answer. Go do it yourself. I walk away. That's your problem. That's not my problem. I know the answer. I know how to do it. Now you gotta get. Now you can't beat that feeling though. Once you get it, once you get the answer, man, your chest go up like 10 times. Yeah, and that's the feeling that we want you to walk with. Walk proud. Let the light shine, because you are the light. You, and that's the key. That's the key to bringing out the best. I'll let Brother Wood speak on something. All right, am I in focus?
yeah,
Yeah.
you're fine.
Yeah, we see.
Where are we now in this
So
discussion?
the question is, Ustadi was addressing the question of how you get students to think for themselves, and he was giving the example of Kajona and their discovery and her discovery that the book, the answer book was wrong, and then figuring out what was right. And that was an empowering thing that she'll never forget. She's thinking for herself. So the question is, what are some of the methods that you use in teaching to encourage people to think for themselves?
Oh, one of the things I use is, for instance, in language arts and writing. I remember Kijana was very creative, and because we have to do essays every week, she asked me, could she write a story? So yeah, do that. And so I don't know, 7 months she was writing uh, writing a story. So her essays were about a book that she was putting together for a story, and that was one of the ways drawing her out and then get her to enjoy writing.
Yeah.
Another thing is that for students who have problems, because we have to write essays uh, every week, some folks get stuck. And what I try to get them to do, one of the things is, number one, I want you to write about what you feel, things that are close to you. Uh, Sometimes you might want to write about some problems and things like that. And I have to ensure them that whatever you write about that's personal will remain personal. I will read it and give it back to you, and no one else will see it. Um, Another thing is when we run out of things to write, I go into descriptive writing. And so one of the things you can do is just write what's in your house, about what's in your house. Give a description and make me be able to see what's in your house. And so you bring out some things, and when you talk about scripted things, the table is over here, that table is sitting in that corner, that table is so many years
Keep
old.
your head up.
That table is so many years old and been around for a long time. So when you
Robert, keep your head up.
up like this,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things in descriptive writing, we go to descriptive writing, we go to personal writing, and those kind of things to get them to bring the essence of themselves out in essays. That's one of the things that we use.
That's very good.
Baba Woods, if I may.
Yes.
Just real quick. So I don't know if you remember this, but I'm bringing it up because that's the thing about the education that y'all gave us as well, is that y'all wanted us to challenge you. There was no arrogance there. You wanted us
That's
to.
correct.
I remember there was a situation where we had watched the video and we were doing, it was for our story. And we had taken a test on this video and this reading that we had to do. And I remember getting back the test and I got a 99 out of 100. You used to write in red pen.
Right.
And
You got it.
I looked at it and I said, no, this is what it said in the video. And you said, no, brother, I don't think so. And I said, I'm pretty sure. And so he said, all right, let me go back and review the video, because they want us to do our best and challenge them, right? And so he
Exactly.
came back, and I think it was maybe after lunch he came back. My apologies, brother. You got 100%. You were
Right on.
correct. And it was something about a mountain being representative or indicative of a snake coil, and that's why they call that particular mountain a certain thing.
Right.
And I had put that in there, and he was like, "That's not what they said." But then he did. So in other words, it's like, not one, they want us to challenge. Two, it's not about arrogance. It's not about, oh,
Exactly.
my pride was hurt or this or that. It's about showing and proving. And like the brothers and the sisters say, it's you are in this constant pressure cooker, so much so that you just begin to embrace it. You just live like that because it's constant. So, I definitely appreciate that type of education.
Right on. Right on.
I'd
And
like
and,
to say
and
brief. Oh,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd say that I'd like to say briefly the proof is in the pudding, the elephant in the room. Kijana, I mean, you're you have this smart black woman who is going into engineering, okay, primarily male dominated field, right? Because she didn't have those. It seems like she didn't have those constraints put on her, right? This is what
Correct.
you're good at. What do you want to do? This is what you decide to do. That I think that I am like extremely proud just to see her sitting here saying I'm going into engineering. I don't know why that makes you smile. I just say the proof
Right
is in the
on.
pudding.
Right on. Yeah. Right.
We have to
Right.
have women in STEM, especially African women in STEM. We are all with that. I'm with you, Stephen. I'm right on. Salute, sis.
Right on. Well, that now that's indicative of teaching pride in our race, because we all win. When one of us win, no matter what the gender is, it makes you feel
Baba, that's
good
what I tell
because
them all the time. We all
yeah,
win. Why would I?
we
Why would
all
I hate
win.
on you?
Right.
I
Right.
don't never want you to lose. I tell people
Right.
that all the time. I
Right.
never want you to
Exactly.
lose. I don't care who you are. If you win, I win. So why would I hold information? Why would
There
I
you
knock you
go.
down? No, absolutely. I agree.
That's it.
Well, and I like the spirit. The
Right
love
on.
radiating all over the place. Strong black love. Huh?
Right. Well, I want to say before the end, I want to say that I'm very proud. I have that contact uh, with Mensa and Stephen, and I don't know, 15 years from Mensa for sure, almost 25 years with Steve.
That's
And
right. That's
but
right.
I knew
Much
that you were
respect.
lost. I kept track of you. Uh, I knew that you were living in Las Vegas. Uh, and Mensa, I didn't know you had moved. I knew you lived in Las Vegas. Scotty said he was going to get Mensa. I said, yeah, Mensa lives in Las Vegas also. But I understand you live in Oregon now. But I want to say I'm very proud of all three of you. You made me proud. Just I'm gonna be lit up like a Christmas tree all day long. So I appreciate all three of you being on the
Feeling
program. Yeah,
Oh, of
feelings
course.
definitely.
likewise. Feelings likewise.
All
Same,
right.
Real talk. Real talk.
same here.
So
Anything the three of you would want to add to how the teaching system, whatnot at ACAL encourage you to think? Anything else you want to add to that?
Again, in the moment, you hate it. You feel like, especially if you come from a public school, you're like, oh, the workload's too much. Oh, the discipline's not, because like public schools, they don't discipline you. You just fail, and then you get set back in life, and that's all there is to it. Here, they don't want you to fail, even though if you come from a public school setting, you feel like they're trying to hold you down by making you basically be better. And after I went to a public school for 1 year my entire life, and that was my junior year, and it was terrible. No one knew basic stuff. People didn't know basic rights. No one knew geography. I think the only thing people knew were Spanish, and that's because it was a forced language that you had to learn. And going there, I was like, oh, wow, everything that they were saying about being way ahead of people my age is true. But since I was in a private school my whole life, I didn't know that it was true. I just was hearing it. And their teachings of always thinking for yourself and not just taking what someone else has told you for like the truth is very valuable, because I remember they would test us. They would always tell us, don't just take what someone gives you as the correct answer, do it yourself and make sure it's right. So like we'll ask them a question about an answer for something, and they'll give us an answer they know is wrong, just to see if anyone either listened to the video, read the material, or is going to challenge it. And it was some things that were like blatantly wrong that people would be like, okay, yeah, 5 times 2 is 15, 100%, yeah. And then other people would be like, I don't think that's correct. And then they'll act like they don't know that they're right, and then they just really want to bring some better version of ourselves out and making sure that we're doing stuff to our best capabilities.
Right on.
Anybody else have anything else to add to?
Yeah, I have to say that coming up, growing up in Black community, it is hard to quantify how beneficial it was to have positive Black people around me during that time. You know, people try to convince you that success is success, doesn't matter who it is, but it says something different when it's close to you, when it's your people, right? And when it actually affects you and your community, to have that positive influence. There are a lot of things that's difficult to really quantify when it comes down to experience. You just know what you know. The echoes of the horrors that we've as a people have experienced and how they affect us today, and it's hard to see that when you're not in it, and to have that positive influence to be able to put you on the right track is immeasurable, right? And I really appreciate the time that I had from the teachers at ACALC, as well as my first teacher, my mom, who passed away 2 years ago. I appreciate you all.
Right on.
Sorry to hear
Peace. Peace.
Brother Vincent, anything else to add?
Yeah, condolences, brother. And power to you. I would say, just from the perspective of Kemet, we understand the power of Kemethian mystery systems, or what they would like to say that is, and book of coming forth by day, and all of these concepts that come out of modern day Sudan or Kush, and out of Kemet, and also out of Mali, out of Timbuktu. These are essential things and are key to all education. And so we just want to really remember that. And we want to disseminate that information and really lift that up, propagandize it, push it out there. And then, as far as, I'm going to say this again, because I want people to understand, and I want people to spread this word. Places like ACALC, institutions, like ACALC, Eli Omide, and other African-centered schools should not be your last choice. Should be your first choice. And that's what I'm going to say to them. And I appreciate and power to you all.
Peace
Yes,
and power to you.
So I really want to thank you, and also say to Babu Stadi, Robert Woods, you all have dedicated your life to doing the most important thing you can do in life. Parents raising children, teachers teaching our young, and the younger they are, the more important the teachers are. I always say that teaching at your level is more important than the university level, because that's where the foundation is laid.
Right.
And university is like, that's your top level. So I want to say to Kajana, Stephen, Mensa, we're proud of you, and Brother Stadi and Brother Woods, thank you for your good work. And I just want to say one thing in conclusion, because we're talking about the African method, Seba, of teaching. 2 weeks ago, Baba Wood, you made the comment that you did very little lecturing,
Right.
and that's important, because what that is saying is you are leaving most of the teaching to the students learning themselves,
Yes.
getting answers themselves, finding the truth themselves, rather than have somebody coming in just lecturing to them and it going over their head. And
Right.
that's again the difference between an African-centered education and a Eurocentric one. Everything is coming from this teacher who's got all the knowledge. No, real education is the wisdom that comes out of the student.
Of the students. Exactly.
That's the light that gets shed on you. You know what I mean? That
Exactly.
little song in the spirituals, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
Mhm.
Your light's shining. And we're proud of all of you. Really
Right
proud.
on. Yes.
So that's it. And I've looked at the comments. We answered the questions as people were going. And I want to encourage people that haven't subscribed, subscribe, get a book from Gumroad, make a donation to the show. But the main thing is, as Brother Mansa said, Musa, don't treat independent Black schools as the last choice. This should be your first choice. And institution building is one of the most important things we could do. And building educational institutions first, economic institutions, and of course,
Exactly.
family institutions. And every other we can build. So I want to say, Hotep, but thank you. This has been a real pleasure.
It's been
Proud of all of you.
tremendous.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely
Thank you.
appreciate being here.
Yeah,
Really
thank you
appreciate it.
for your time. You know,
All right. Appreciate all of you.
Okay.
Proud of all of you. Thank you.
All
Hotep.
right.
Hotel.
Peace be upon you.